We can't talk about rentals in this market without discussing the Airbnb strategy. There are a lot of investors right now who are purchasing property and putting in Airbnb tenants, almost like hotels, operating a bed and breakfast with the platform Airbnb managing the rentals for you. There are other platforms coming out, and we'll talk about it for a little bit. There are also investors who are going and they just rent out the unit like a normal lease option, and then they go and they actually do the Airbnb on top of the lease. Instead of owning the property, they're just leasing the property, and then they go and they do the Airbnb on top of it. This can be a very low risk strategy where you're not actually owning the property, you're just having a lease, and as long as you beat the lease, you're doing okay. Some of the negatives to Airbnb are one, all the regulations around it. Right now, Airbnb is still relatively new. We're seeing cities like Las Vegas, Boston, Miami lock down and tighten up, in New York, tighten up a lot of restrictions and not allowing Airbnb in certain areas. There's also the other side of Airbnb is that you're constantly maintaining the property. Instead of just having a lease that goes through once a month, you're getting every single day, every other day, new tenants. You're turning over a lot of maintenance costs. There's a lot of fixing and cleaning that goes into the Airbnb model. The other deterrent when you're doing Airbnb is you have to supply all of the furniture. So you're taking a vacant unit and then putting furniture in. If you already have a space or a house that you have that's been in existence either in your condo, in your rental apartment, an apartment, or in your house, then the cost of furniture isn't as extraneous. But as you start to scale this business, and I know people who are doing it, you scale the business, now you're buying a lot of furniture. And you have to get discounts on the furniture, and it's absolutely scalable. But you're going to find that cost, it can cost you $10,000 to $15,000 up front on an Airbnb just to get the furniture in. So there is some risk, and if the regulation in that area cuts you out of it, now you have all of this storage. You've got to move these into other units. You got to go to other areas. It's just it's a complex system, but it can provide you a way to get into the business without putting a lot of risk on the table. Because if at any moment your lease expires, you can just pack up the Airbnb and move on to somewhere else. Say you decide to want to go to a different area. You could also, monthly, you get more income typically for an Airbnb than you will from a normal standard tenant at will or lease option, because they're paying higher rate per night. So if you're in a nice area where there's a lot of airports or a lot of travel going on, the Airbnb strategies potentially could get you 2 to 3 times rent what you normally would get. So depending on what you have, sometimes Airbnb is a great option, and it's a great investment for some investors. And I know some people who scale it and that's all they do. They don't own any property, they just handle a lot of lease options, and they do a lot of Airbnb, and it's been a great cash flow position for them.